Hello, everybody. My name is Dylan Sanchez. I'm one of the assistant directors here in the admissions office at CC. I currently get to work with a lot of our student ambassadors here on campus, and I get to spend a lot of time around campus, especially now as we are starting to transition back and potentially get back to campus here in the next couple weeks. So I'm looking forward to potentially meeting some of you all as you all go through your college search. But today in the student panel, you'll get to hear from some students about a variety of different things that they all went through, right? That you all might be going through now in your college search. But we'll get to hear from some of our student ambassadors and our student fellows here. And we'll kind of talk about in today's session about the three phases of everything, right? Their reflection on and tips on the college search process, everything else that they were thinking about as juniors and seniors in high school, all the way down to the point where they were choosing, right, their final colleges and then ultimately choosing CC. And now, right, as students on campus, we can hear a little bit more about their life and experiences at CC. So we'll briefly start with some introductions with our ambassadors and our fellows. So to get us started, do you just want to go across the screen here? Kiara, do you want to go ahead and get us started?
Yeah. Hello. I'm Kiara. I'm a rising junior. I'm originally from Lexington, Kentucky, and I am double majoring in psychology and theater. Theo? I don't know what else.
I don't know what the order is, but I do know what the order is. Sorry. So I'm Fiorella. I am a Southwest Studies Molecular Bio double major, and I'm originally from Van Nuys, California, also LA area mostly. Excited to talk with y'all. Gabby.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gabriella, and I'm a rising junior as well. I'm from Beaufort, South Carolina, and I'm majoring in psychology with 2 minors in Spanish and studio art. Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anu, and I'm originally from Mongolia, and I'm majoring in economics.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dexios. I'm a rising senior. I'm from Lakewood, Colorado, and I do international political economy. And so, yeah, pretty close by for me. Andres.
Hey, y'all. My name is Andres. I'm from Auburn, Washington, kind of nearby Seattle. And I'm going to be majoring in organismal biology and ecology, and also Spanish.
Hi, I'm Katie. I'm from San Diego. I'm a rising senior, and I'm going to be majoring in international political economy.
All right. Thank you, students. So we also have in the chat today a couple of our staff members within the admissions office. So if you, they'll be dropping some links in the chat. So if you see a message from Ryan Walsh or Savannah McDaniel, we do have some staff members that are also going to be supporting us in the chat. And we're going to go ahead, like we said, we're going to move through these 3 phases and hopefully hear some questions from you and get to ask our students some of these questions. But the first part of everything that we want to talk about is that piece on the reflection and the tips on the college search process. And so the first question we can kind of use to get us started. And of course, everyone feel free to start dropping questions into the chat, questions you might have about what the process is like or any questions you might have about it. But maybe one of the first questions we want to talk about is, and it's students, did you ever have a chance to visit your college campuses? And did you visit virtually before applying to any of your colleges or ultimately CC?
I'll get us started. For me, I guess I didn't visit before I applied to all of the schools. I was just kind of we're going to see what happens. And then after getting accepted to some schools, then I was okay, we'll do a college road trip. And I visited CC twice. One of them was for an admitted students weekend. And those are really helpful. Just visiting the college in general was really helpful because I didn't know what the vibes were on campus, and just stepping on campus and kind of talking to students like this, albeit it was in person, but hearing their experiences and getting a feel of campus was kind of the cherry on top, or just like the thing that was like, okay, I've made my decision now. So yeah.
Yeah, I applied ED to CC before ever visiting the campus. And so when I visited, I was like, if I end up here, I don't have a choice, so I better like it. And CC was kind of the big campus that I went to. I took like time off of work and everything to see it. And so I think that like being able to see it in person was kind of like solidified my love of the school. But I know that sometimes people like will see a school and realize that it's not for them.
Yeah, for me, I actually didn't get the chance to visit CC before, I guess, accepting my, spot here, because I applied through Questbridge. But luckily I have family nearby in a town called Pueblo, which is about 30 minutes south of us. And I visited Colorado Springs in the city and went to like Garden of the Gods, like Manitou Springs, and went to like a few restaurants. And I was like, this is a really cool city. And so when I found out that CC was here, I was like, oh, I like the area. I think this might be a cool place.
And for those of you, how would you say were your most important supporting actors in all of this, in this whole process? Was it, whether it be parents or your counselors at your schools or siblings or anything like that? Who's someone that you should really hopefully you can turn to in these situations?
I think I personally really latched on to like my college counselor, even though we kind of had a little bit of beef because I didn't really like CC didn't really match a lot of the things that I was looking for in a school on like, I guess like on paper. Like I was looking at like big cities and stuff, and I didn't really think that like Colorado kind of fit that. I was kind of like West Coast or East Coast kind of thing. But yeah, so I really kind of latched onto her after she kind of convinced me I think now it's called Explore Colorado College, but at the time it's called the Fly-In program. And she really convinced me to do that. And so after that, like anything related to like college and stuff, I was like, okay, like she's well seasoned in this. I should listen to her. So I really like latched onto her. And then I also really communicated with my territory rep. And he was a super big factor, I think, in like looking at like what my like what I needed to turn in, like what was missing. And it was just like he just made it a lot easier to keep track of everything that I needed to turn in order to like be a successful applicant, I guess, which was really nice.
Awesome. Cool. So I guess in choosing Colorado College, right, one of the most common questions here, one of the first ones we get in the chat is about the block plan. Can anyone speak to the intensity of the block plan? Is it actually as stressful as some people say it is, or what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I can try to tackle that question. I think the intensity in the block plan and stress are related. I think that a lot of times the block kind of speeds everything up in the sense that you've kind of got like that month to get everything done. And so I think there's a lot of stress involved with that and intensity as well. And I think that intensity builds some stress there, is kind of to answer the question about the relationship between the two. So I think it's about like figuring out what kind of learner you are in that space. And then also like, it's never a great idea to have like all really hard blocks for 8 blocks throughout the year. That's going to be a real big strain on your mental health. And I think as students, we've been throughout the years just trying to make it a bigger, like less of a taboo thing to talk about, is like mental health on the block plan and how we take care of ourselves and taking time off, because, my brain right now is programmed like month by month. That's how I live my life. And sometimes that creates some unhealthy habits. So you have to work hard to make sure that you're taking care of yourself in that situation.
I will add that the month by month makes it easier to kind of like pace yourself, and I think like wrap yourself around it, because you don't have to like think about an entire semester's worth of course load or anything like that. You can really go like really week by week, because each week is kind of a little bit different. And so it's not monotonous. And I think that like the ability to kind of split your time naturally is definitely a cool thing, especially with like the opportunity to have a block break. I think is, while the block is very stressful, that block break is like protected and for you. And so that kind of can help ease that stress. And that's a good time for mental health work. And it also means that you can take a block off as opposed to an entire semester. And that means like, if your mental health is suffering, then you can definitely like find a way to like heal it without losing an entire 4 or 6 months of a semester.
For me, it was definitely an adjustment moving from just the semester plan, or I did dual enrollment. So I took like some community college classes in high school. And so that was like quarter basis. And then going from this, it was like super, I guess, truncated. Like when my friends were like just starting their classes, we'd be like in midterms already for like, I guess, like science classes. And so I've noticed that I really like it for like, I guess, more like humanities and like essay kind of like writing courses where you have like a long period of time or like a day or two. And then, but I notice it can get a little more difficult with like science courses, at least just in my experience, just because there's like a load of information that you have to memorize in like a really short amount of time. And so, but I think as you progress and get past those like intro level classes, it gets a little easier.
So again, in that choosing CC sense, did anyone choose CC strictly because of the block plan, or how strong of a factor was the block plan in making your decision?
I just got back, so I apologize if someone's already said this, but I chose CC because of the block plan, and I really liked how the structure of the plan gives us the ability to like travel and take field trips.
Yeah, the block plan was also a big factor for me in choosing CC. I also did early decision. And so I was really lucky to actually talk to a current student at CC when I was applying. So when I was trying to make that decision of whether to do like early decision, early action, I really wanted to make sure that the block plan would work for me. And I wanted to get that experience from a current student. So I reached out to someone from my high school who went to CC before me. And so I got to like hear her talk about like how learning on the block plan was for her, and like how her schedule and everything like that was like planned out. And it just felt, I really liked what I heard, and it felt like it was something that would work for me. And it was also really nice because she had gone to my high school, and so like she could kind of relate the way that our like high school is versus like CC. And so for me, hearing that experience and just learning about how on the block plan you're able to like focus on one thing, you're able to kind of make the schedule work for you, all of that really kind of pushed me towards CC and applying ED.
Yeah, I really liked that I was not going to have to take a whole semester off to study abroad, that you could literally study on a block anytime in the middle of the year. And that was kind of what drew me to CC, is just the ability to like study abroad so flexibly, and just to have like a flexible schedule where it's not like tied down to just the semester plan, which I think can be a little bit like daunting and very much like very stuck with that long period of time as opposed to like the shorter period of time that is a block.
Awesome. Great. So another question, or one of the questions we have in the chat here is, what qualities does a successful Cardo College student have? What do you notice the most in your peers within the classroom or just around campus itself?
I think collaboration is very big here at CC and within our students. I think a lot of our students here are very eager to work with each other and help each other out versus trying to compete with one another in the classes. So I've had lots of like friends from classes reach out, or just anyone in class reach out and be like, you want to start like a study group, or you want to study together in the library, or, you know, kind of like talk through these things that we talked about in class that I didn't understand. Just kind of that more collaborative nature is, I think, something that really helps CC, and especially on the block plan where sometimes it can go really fast. So just reaching out to your peers and getting that help is, I think, what leads to a lot of success on the block plan.
I think also people that are like adaptable, just because you switch blocks, on a 3.5 week basis, and you'd be taking like organic chemistry in one block and then go into like a social sciences and then maybe photography, or so there's a lot of switching. And so if you're someone that kind of likes to like be in something for like a longer amount of time and like with those abrupt changes can like struggle, I would say, yeah, it might be like a bit harder or like a bit longer, take you a bit longer to adapt. And I would also say someone who is kind of like, I guess, on top of your work and not like so much of a procrastinator, because each day on the block plan can be like, what is it equivalent to, like sometimes like 3 days or like 4 days, like on a semester plan. So if you fall behind, it can be sometimes really hard to catch back up. So just as long as you're like on top of it, it's you'll be good.
Cool. So again, I guess going back and thinking about reflecting on your own college search process, what is a piece of advice you would offer to students who are just starting their college search today?
Yeah, kind of thinking back on my own college search process is I really wish I was a little bit more open at the beginning of my college search process. I thought I really knew what I wanted. That didn't end up being true at the end of the day. I was looking at, I was deciding between NYU and CC, which is two very different schools, and like size of the school and what my life would have been like living in the middle of New York City as well. And I realized that that was a space that I wasn't ready for. Like I was not ready to kind of live in a big city on my own and do those kind of things yet. And CC was a lot more of a smaller community that I felt like I could have that closer connection to and that closer impact to that mattered to me. So, you know, taking the time to like learn a little bit more about yourself in the process. I know it's so hard. It's like such a stressful process, and like it's created, I think, to be a stressful process. But just, you know, treating it as like a journey. And then I think like, finally, I'm throwing a lot of advice out there, but like knowing that whole narrative about like, oh no, like what if you don't find the exact right place for you? Like that, I wouldn't buy into that narrative. Like that's not necessarily like something that like, you know, like I think that's just like, that's always a general opinion I have about life is like, you know, there's gonna be things that you're trying to find. And I just, it's so hard to find like the exact thing. So just taking that pressure off of yourself a little bit on that knowing that like everyone's life could have been a lot different, going a bunch of different avenues. And it's never like you're locked in if you do decide and it doesn't go the way that you're planning.
I would say use your resources, and then also like look for them too, and don't be afraid to ask for help. A lot of people in my family, or I think I was one of the first in my family to kind of go through this whole process, just like college applications. And I didn't really have a lot of help like from my family, but I was like actively looking for like people to like read my essays. And like, I think I had 6 or 7 people kind of like help me revise that. And so Questbridge helped a lot. They're like a scholarship organization that like helps students of, well, like a lot of them are students of color, also like low-income family backgrounds. So they helped a ton. There's this other organization called Matriculate that pairs you with a, I guess, advisor, and they're like at a different college campus. And so that helped a lot too with just like preparing and like feeling, you know, mentally prepared for college and having everything set. But yeah, just don't be afraid to ask for help. You know, it's definitely not something that I wish I would have done alone.
Great. Thank you. So one of the other questions we have here is, what do you wish you knew about CC before you started here?
This is kind of always my canned response, but I think the big thing I always say is that CC is what you make of it. And so like, there's no opportunity that's out of reach to you at CC. And so like, don't be afraid to go after things. It's a small school. There's only 2,000 of us. At most, you're competing with 2,000 people, and that's maybe not that many in the grand scheme of things. And like even just attempting to go after things is a learning experience, and it's a meaningful one. So I would say like make the most of your CC experience, because there's a ton of resources and they're very like valuable and things that you have access to while you're here.
I would say just, I guess I wasn't, well, kind of expecting, but just was very, I don't know, it was kind of like a different way of looking at it when I got here. and just like realizing how much I kind of had to like advocate for myself, because it's easy to kind of, I wouldn't say easy to fall through the cracks, but like everyone kind of, since it's like a lot of your peers are like really like high achieving, it's, you know, sometimes like if they're struggling, it's hard to ask for help, you know, so like myself included. So when I'm in a hard block, I would notice if I didn't ask for help like right away, I would get further and further behind and end up like not doing so well in that class. And so just knowing how fast the pace of the block plan goes, and knowing and telling myself over and over that I need to ask for help like right away if I'm really struggling.
Cool. Yeah, there's lots of questions right now we're getting about the community and just the environment, the culture around campus. So can anyone speak to, is there a CC bubble? Do students able to get off campus, or able to spend, you know, what are you able to do with your social life around the CC community?
I think Katie was explaining, CC is kind of what you make of it. And so like if you want to like be engaged with the outer like Colorado Springs community, you can be. We have a program specifically for that. It's called the CCE. And they are very active in sending you emails and letting you know when there's like community events coming up and things that you can get involved with, and things that you want to do. But if you want to stay in the CC bubble, that is also an option. So it really is like whatever you want to do. So if you like find a group of friends and you just want to like go hiking or like go skiing and stuff, like it's whatever like you feel like doing. And so I guess you can say that like if you want to be in a bubble, you can be, but there is an option not to be, because there's just so much that you can do just like being on campus and just like being aware. Like if you literally just like walk through anything, like through any building, like there's always like posters and signs up just being like, hey, if you want to get involved with this, email so-and-so. And so it's at sometimes it's actually kind of it can be like a flaw to get involved in too many things. I think a lot of CC people do that and quickly realize that you just can't do that. And so I think that, you know, it's up to you. I would say is my answer.
I would add that the Springs can seem a bit inaccessible to those who don't have cars or like that method of transportation. And I would also say it can feel like a bubble too, just because of how busy it gets, because you have class for 3 hours a day and then homework for, you know, sometimes like 5 hours, or I guess depending on what class you're in. So, you know, you're working like full time basically, and then have like other obligations, clubs, friends. And so I found myself just like on campus a lot. But there is opportunity to like go off of campus too. You know, like there's school sponsored like events, and then also like you can go with friends if they have cars. But in my experience, yeah, I did feel it was like very much so like a bubble.
Right. And in that total immersion of the block plan, is it easy or is it difficult or challenging to get to know your peers within your classroom, or what's it like with the relationships with your professors?
Yeah, I can start to try to answer that. I think there are some advantages that are very distinct to the block plan in the sense that you spend a lot of time with your professor, your individual professor, and the students in your class. So I definitely felt myself like developing relationships super, super quickly, like in ways that I definitely did not remember doing in high school, where, you know, it's like in high school, I remember like seeing people every now and then, but in like college and on the block plan, I was seeing kids for 3 hours a day, every single day. And then if I was friends with them, I'd go hang out with them afterwards. So that like made relationship building in that block really easy for me. What does become slightly tricky though, is you do have to remember though, unlike the semester system where you can kind of, you know, stay in classes with your friends, if you do have classes with your friends for the entirety of the semester, But within the block plan, you're going to have that one class, and then it sometimes changes into this weird thing where you might not see someone for a really long time in the classroom setting. So I think relationships for me, like starting off, I developed really strong connections, but then I also realized I have to put some more energy into maintaining those relationships outside of that one block, because it's just, you're not necessarily going to see each other all the time in that same setting. Not to say, again, you can join clubs and activities as well too, to make friends. That's where most of my close friends are coming from too, in your spare time. And just knowing as well with your professors, that professors are, for the most part that I've had an experience with, are like super open for you to get to know them. I have a lot of professors that I'm pretty close with, and just the natural, like having really small classes will just foster a bit of a closer relationship, in my opinion, with your professors.
Yeah, I second that. I came in early for the Bridge Scholars program, and I had 2 professors, and one of them still like reaches out to check up on me. And like, I'm a rising junior now. And she's just like, would you like to get lunch? Or like, how are you doing? And like 3 of my closest friends like came from that class. That like, I would not trade them for the world. And that's what happens with a lot of my classes, is that I think for a majority of people, like I don't want to say like you're suffering, but some classes you're like crying together for like 3.5 weeks, and like helping each other out, and just like, I'm struggling, I hope you're struggling too. So you're dealing with it together, and you just like build those connections through your class with the students. But then also like a majority amount of my professors are very like, how are you today? Let's like go to my house, like I'll cook you some dinner, and we can chat about like this book or something like that. So that I agree with Dex about the advantage of like having a small class and like being in the block plan with 3.5 weeks with these students and professors.
Right. Very well said. So, just lost the question I was going to ask. I think we have some questions between, I don't know if anyone could speak to this, about research opportunities or internship opportunities. How does that kind of work in the sense of the block plan and everything else?
Anu, I think something's wrong with like your mic. I don't know if anybody else was having problems hearing. Okay. I didn't want to make you keep going.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I think it's just going between my headphones and okay, sorry about that. Oh, I was just saying, and thank you for stopping me there. I was saying that this research opportunities also kind of like tie in with your relationship with your professors, because you get to like see your professors. A lot of professors will also like talk about different research that they've been doing or they've done during their career, and if you actually like the research that they're doing, you can kind of approach them and ask them like, do they need any like student research, like student researchers or assistants like that. And lots of professors I've seen have like given those opportunities, especially over the summer, because CC has a really great program called SCORE, which stands for Summer Collaborative Research program, where basically CC will actually pay students to do research with professors. And you can also get like an additional housing grant. So there really isn't a financial burden for you to do research over the summer with your professors. And so like with SCORE, I've done research with a professor last summer, and I'm also doing like part-time research with a professor this summer. So there's lots of opportunities. And another really great thing is, because we're an undergrad only institution, we're not competing with like other graduate students for research opportunities. So even like students that are freshmen going into their first summer have opportunities to do research like early on in their college career.
Yeah, I would add that like any, even if you can't find a research opportunity or a professor that like is researching something that you're interested in, you can also apply for outside grants to like do that research independently. which means that like no matter what you want to study, you can kind of find a way to fund that. And that's especially like important as an undergraduate, because I think most institutions you can kind of get lost in. But here, like we care about our students doing research. And like if you have like a very cool proposal, like CC wants you to do it. And so that's what I would add on to it.
Yeah, and as for internships, they also have unpaid internship funding. So if you do find one that seems really cool, but it's not paid, CC will give you like, I think $2,500 for like the summer to work that. And there's like, I think some requirements for it, but I was one of the students to do it last summer. The in-person element got canceled, which I was a little upset about but understandably. But it ended up being a really cool experience. So just, keep that on your radar that there's also funding for that kind of internship experience too.
Great. Thank you. All right. So we're getting some more questions. Looks like we have some questions about diversity among students, maybe different resources that are available for students on campus. Does anyone have any experience with that, or anyone want to speak to that?
Yeah. As you can see, our students here today is like a really diverse group, but you won't see that as often on this campus, or as much like at a bigger university. But I think for me, it was like really beneficial to come in for the Bridge Scholars Program, which if you don't know, it's like for low income, first generation students of color. That's where I kind of I had a mentor who's like, you'll find like your group of people that you'll like really connect with. And that's what happened with me. So like I was really benefited in coming in that program, but students who aren't, there's a lot of affinity groups here on campus, as well as just, I don't know where I was going with that. Wow, I lost my train of thought. But a lot of affinity groups here on campus, and the Butler Center tries really hard to do diversity inclusion. And just in general, I think the students are really trying to, especially students of color here on this campus, are trying to make it well aware and being like, hey, like we're here and we would like to be an all-inclusive campus and showing you that. I keep losing my train of thought. Wow. Okay. I'm so sorry. This answer is so long, but yes, I think it's, I think diversity is like a problem in a lot of schools, especially private schools. It's going to be anywhere you go. But yeah, just heed that we do have affinity groups, the Butler Center, and the students here on campus really try. Okay, I'm going to
I just want to touch on what Kiara said a little bit more about the Bridge program. And I just want to say that if you are invited to join, I highly recommend that because it is a great group of supportive, or it's a diverse group of students. And all of my close friends are from that program. And, I think that's been my biggest source of emotional and mental support throughout my past 2 years on campus. And then the Butler Center is also super great to go and just talk to the people there. And then they also provide a lot of financial support if you ever find yourself in that situation.
Oh my gosh, I also completely forgot that our outdoor education center also does a great job at like being like, let's go on like a hike or like a camping trip for students, specifically for students of color, to get you connected with that community on campus.
The Outdoor Education Center also sponsored us going to go skiing and snowboarding last year for free for students who had never been before. So super cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would add to that. I guess in my experience, it has been. I mean, coming from a pretty diverse. Like, I went to a community college like during high school for 2 years. That was like super diverse, and then coming to CC, it was kind of almost like a really stark difference as a predominantly white institution. And so it took me a little bit to kind of just find my people. I did feel out of place. There's definitely like feelings of imposter syndrome. But yeah, like, especially when I'd find myself like in classes where like maybe I was only a student of color, or in sports, I ran like cross country and track. And I think I was maybe one of the handful of runners that were students of color too. And so I haven't really experienced anyone being like overtly like, just disrespectful or like racist, but like you often see like, I don't know, like microaggressions of happening, which, could happen everywhere too, but it's definitely, present here, unfortunately, but I've found like a support system that has been really useful, especially in the Native American Student Union, which I'm one of the co-chairs of. And also we started a chapter of multicultural fraternity called Psi Sigma Phi. And so that's going active next year. And I think there's a sorority too, DXN, some of y'all are part of. But yeah, spaces like that, I notice, if you see something that's not present, like CC allows you to kind of and gives you resources to like create that. And so that's one thing that I appreciate as a student here.
Yeah, and this question, I feel like maybe it might be in the same vein, but with a lot of what we just talked about. But can we just touch a little bit more about social justice and culture on campus, and how do CC students participate in reform, whether it be around campus or within the community itself of Colorado Springs?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I think there are a lot of different ways that CC students kind of engage with social justice reform. There are more formal avenues in the sense that I'm a part of student government. I know that student government tries to do a great amount of pushing when it comes to things like the anti-racism initiative. But then there are, I should name some other prominent formal avenues. One is like mutual aid and trying to support each other through understanding that like we're in times of we're struggling right now, whether that's the pandemic or a lot of variety of things, and understanding the intersections or like the bridges between a lot of our identities and our positions here. And so there's also been the collective for anti-racism liberation. And that's been working on kind of pushing for anti-racism, whether that's like re-examining CC's relationship with the Colorado Springs police, or discussing like, what does it mean to have safe spaces around campus in the social justice oriented work. Recently, we've had a student group working on talking about social justice for Palestine. That's been really active on trying to get people to understand the history of what's been going on with Palestine, as well as the current moment, as well as a variety of efforts that are either through the classroom or partner organizations in the Springs. I think a lot of students at CC are social justice oriented. And I think that is something that there's a lot of energy about on campus to kind of keep pushing and finding ways, whether that's formal avenues or less formal avenues that people want to take to address those.
All right. Thank you. All right. I definitely want to still make sure we answer any questions about, we have some questions, I think, about the application process and everything else. So I know we have some of you that that applied ED or early decision. So can you tell us a little bit more about why you chose to apply early decision? Or vice versa, anyone who didn't apply early decision, kind of what was your thought process along the way?
For me, applying ED was a few things. So first, I really wanted to get the application out of the way and just, focus on other things, because it was just a really stressful time. And so I really wanted to take advantage of that, like earlier kind of deadline option. So I was kind of trying to decide between like early decision and early action. And for me, I decided on early decision because I was really confident in my decision in like wanting to go to CC. And also CC's like early decision and early action options, they have a much higher like acceptance rate in general, like compared to the regular decision options. Regular decision so for me, it was kind of like trying to take advantage of doing it earlier so that I can get my things done and over with and like have that peace of mind, and also just the higher acceptance rate.
Yeah, I didn't apply ED, but I kind of want to talk about it because I think it's something that I viewed totally wrong when I was in high school. I kind of looked at like ED as like, all right, what's the best school that I can get my highest percent chance of getting into, because that's going to look the most impressive. And so why not try to go for that? And I didn't end up going with ED, but that's kind of how I viewed the process. And I guess I just personally would encourage not necessarily doing it in that way, because just understanding that like, there's all of these rankings and things that tell you about what's a great school, but you might go through the college process and decide that at the end of the day that like top ranking school on whatever list might not be the school that you needed for yourself. So I'm happy with my decision not to go ED, because I'm going to tell you that I would not have gone ED to CC, and I would have probably been very sad about that at the end of my college process. So yeah, I think it's a great option, but something that you should definitely be sure that it's not just the like best school on paper, but also like what's good for you too. And that's why I went with early action, because I felt like I really love CC, knew it was a highly selective school. So I wanted to improve my odds a little bit, but I wasn't ready to fully commit.
Yeah, my experience is a little similar. I think maybe a little different though. I know with the QuestBridge application, you have the opportunity to apply to up to 12 schools that are like partner schools. CC is a partner school. And I don't know if it's ED or like before ED. So you get your acceptance letter before if you match to a school. But I guess it was a bit of a gamble, because whatever school you apply through QuestBridge, through that process, if you match to a school, it's like a binding decision. So all of your other offers are like rescinded. So it worked out that I got accepted to CC and matched, and that I really liked the school. But yeah, I think for some people, if they're not sure about something and they get and say they do match or like do ED and then get in through that, and like if it's a binding decision, kind of change their mind afterwards. I could see how that kind of might be a problem. So just make sure you're like absolutely sure if that's the route that you decide to go.
Awesome. Cool. All right. I'm scrolling up and down the chat here, seeing if there's some more questions, and we definitely have a lot of them. And one of the other questions I saw earlier was about housing and what the housing experience was like for you all here at CC. Anyone want to start with kind of what their experience was like?
I love talking about housing because I had such a good time my first year. I was in what was then called a forced triple in South. So it was basically a double room, but they put a third person in there because of space or something. And actually, Gabby and Kiera were both on my floor in my hall, and we're all still friends. So yeah, yay for that. I was really stressed when I was looking at housing and stuff, because I had heard I had at that point toured a lot of colleges, and I had talked to a lot of current college students, and everybody had different experiences, and we're all talking about oh, I hated my roommate, or oh, I loved them, and this and that. And so I was really scared because I didn't want to have to transfer out of my room. I was like, that sounds like a complicated process. And so I just and I also didn't want to search for a roommate, because I was like, if I search for a roommate and then we get along and then we live together and then end up hating each other, that's kind of awkward. So I was like, whatever, we're just going to leave it up to chance. So I did the lottery system, and it ended up being so delicious and so beautiful and perfect, because my roommates were just absolute queens, and we just communication just worked out perfectly for us, and just being able to talk about things so openly with them was really nice. And just we just set boundaries the first night we met, and we're just yeah, we're cool sharing stuff, we're cool with people in the room, and just if somebody wasn't okay with things happening, we were just okay, we don't do it, and that's the end of it. And so it was just kind of a way to make sure that all three of us were comfortable with each other, but we were also comfortable with all of our friends. And I'm actually living with them again next year, my junior year. And it's just like all of our friends just like put together in an apartment. And so it's just like such a beautiful thing that happened. And I'm really grateful that like CC is generally pretty good at that, but there's also obviously occasions where that's not the case. And you're just kind of like, you know, it's not like a bad experience. Sometimes it can be a bad experience, but there's like resources for that. You like talk to your RA, or like you can request to transfer out and stuff. That personally, that process seemed too long and complicated for me, but it works out. I will say the rooms, like space wise, can be kind of small sometimes. My room was really, really small last year, actually. But this year I'm living in Glass House, which is the multicultural house on campus, which is an option once you become a sophomore. So you can live in a small house, and this is like themed housing living. And I love it here. Gabby was my roommate, but sadly she's home now. But yeah, next year I'm living in an apartment, and then senior year you have the option to either stay on campus or move off campus. So yeah, that's what I'll say about housing.
Yeah. Doing like the lottery system, if you don't know anybody, like coming to CC is definitely a gamble. I will say I like loved my hall. Like I had some of the best people in them. And I mean, I came back this year to be a residential advisor in the same like dorm building. So like, it's not that bad. I was also in a forced triple. I loved one of my roommates. The other one, we just didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things. But we still like cordial with each other and be like, hey, and we tried to stay out of the room as much as possible. So like you get like sometimes, like I said, a gamble sometimes where you're like, we're vibing like with my one other roommate. And then sometimes you're not because you're really different. Like your living styles are different, but not to the point where it was like forcing me out and being like, I cannot live here anymore. But if that is the case, then like talk to your RA and they can like get you set up with the RLC, and they can like transfer you, whether it's in a room in the same building or in another building. But after, so like your first year, you get put into like the 3 like big halls. And then after that, a lot of small houses or language housing opens up for you, which is great because next year I'm a RA in a small house, and I'm really excited because I spent the past 2 years in a first year dormitory. Not the worst dormitory. I think it's the best. But some people will disagree, but I came back. So yes.
Yeah. And for a lot of us that are out of state, how do you feel what is it like to adjust to Colorado, kind of being new here, new to the area at a smaller college? Kind of what is that experience like?
Well, it's always difficult moving away from home. So there's always obviously some like homesickness that you'll probably deal with. But I think the nicest thing coming in as like a first year is that everyone is away from home. Even if they're from Colorado, they're still like most likely going to be like in a different city, or just like you're all still kind of in the same boat of like being away from home. And so everyone is kind of feeling the same way, and so you can relate to a lot, like all of you can make a lot of friends to kind of relating through the homesickness and things like that. For me, what was really helpful was all of the orientation programming that happened. So I did international student orientation and then new student orientation, and both of those were really great. And first of all, like getting to know CC, and then getting to know all of the other first years that are coming into CC, and kind of just making friends at the same time. So like the first few days for me was like definitely hard with like being away from home, being in a completely different like country from like in my case. But as soon as I made like friends and got to like I don't know, join groups and kind of build those communities, it was a lot easier to kind of feel more home here and like build that space for yourself here.
Awesome. Yeah, it looks like we have some questions, or we had a question about the living learning communities. Has anyone had any experience in themed housing before?
I lived in a language house my second year. So I lived in the Russian house. So that's one of the types of themed housing we have is language houses. And so we have 6 language houses. One of them is the Russian languages house. And for these language houses, anyone can go live in them. You have to like fill out an application just saying why you want to live in them. And most likely they just want students who are interested in that like language and that culture and who just want to get involved. So you don't have to be fluent in that language because I'm definitely not fluent in Russian at all. So I had taken a Russian adjunct my first year. And so I had gotten to know the CPC, which is the cultural program coordinator who lives in the house and holds a lot of events for the house. So I had kind of grown to know her and like gone to the events and like really liked that environment. So I wanted to go and live there for my second year, and I really enjoyed my time there. I love the Russian house. I love going there now if I can get the chance. But it's a really great way to kind of live in a smaller community and participate in a different type of living situation.
Awesome. Thank you, Anand. Cool. So probably our last question then to wrap up before we get to 5 o'clock, but what would you say is one of the most compelling aspects of your CC experience? Or if you could describe CC in your 3 adjectives, what would they be? It's a tough one. You got to think on that one for sure.
Do we have to do 3 adjectives, or can we just talk about the most compelling?
Yeah, you can just go ahead and give me your most compelling, or the most compelling aspects of your CC experience here. Or if there was an academic or a moment here at CC that really stood out to you, whether it be about the block plan or just whatever it may be.
I would say take the opportunity to study abroad. That's not like 3 words or 1 word or anything, but study abroad is like my favorite thing about CC. Andres and I went to Spain together and just like had fun. He's a great dancer. Anyone wanted to know. So I think like take advantage of that as an opportunity, or even if you like don't feel like it's within your means. We have a lot of like aid for studying abroad, but like doing field study is a great part of CC. Like going out and licking rocks is a very fun thing that a lot of students do.
Yeah, I think just in general, like all of the opportunities that are offered on this campus was something that I was like, whoa, like that's crazy to me. Because I came from like a city that you go to like these 2 places and there's not really anything to do. And then coming here, it's like you can go to the mountains, or you can go to Denver, or study like Katie said, study abroad, and just like some other things on campus that you can do, participating in like our dance workshop, one of my favorite things on campus to do. So I think that's like the special thing about CC is the copious amounts of opportunities and like what you get to do.
For me, I'd have to say definitely study abroad, Spain, and then also I got the chance to go to Costa Rica with the outdoor education department. I think they had a trip that was available for bridge students, or for students that did the bridge program. So that's another perk if you do bridge. I'm not sure if they did it last year, but they were going to go to Machu Picchu. And that was where like all expenses paid trips to do backpacking. So that was a really awesome experience. Got to see a sloth. And my 3 words are flexible, or resourceful, and challenging.
Yeah, I'll just throw my one of my favorite experiences in there pretty quickly. I got to go to Berlin my first year here at CC with the speech and debate team. We do a broad competition, and that was so exciting to just kind of get that experience to do a co-curricular activity at CC, as well as kind of getting to explore Berlin and learn about that. And that was my first time abroad since I was born in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. So my first time abroad since then, which was exciting.
Alrighty. Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. So we can definitely put up some information about next steps and everything all that's still available for you all to do, especially right as we move into this summer and start to think about the different sessions that you'll be able to join us with. Right. So later on this summer, we'll have a variety of different things available to you, especially later this month. We're hoping to get back to campus and have some opportunities to potentially visit with us in person if you're nearby. And then you can move in, you can kind of maybe just take a picture of this. It's one of the easiest ways to kind of keep everything organized for yourself, right? And it applies to a lot of different institutions that you might be looking at here. As for this session or the recording of this session afterwards, after we complete our final college bootcamp later this month, we'll make all the recordings available, the sessions available online. And we'll also be emailing those out to those that attended with us. So make sure we'll make sure to keep it in the loop on everything else that's happening the rest of the way. But thank you all for joining us. Feel free to find us on the website if you have any questions, or if you want to follow up with any of our student ambassadors and our ambassador fellows here. Yeah, thank you again.